All right, we're going to do 1.2 now. Okay, so with 1.2, there's a highlighter. Yeah. Okay, I want this to come over here, and I want a pencil. And I also want an eraser to erase that. Okay. I want a pencil black. Okay, this is, no, I want a pencil. This is 1.2. All right. 1.2 starts out with adding, it's basically, the whole section is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers. Okay? Integers are negatives and positive numbers. Okay? Now, to add integers, when you're adding integers, I want you to not think about it as adding. I want you to think about it as combining. Because sometimes you have to add to get the answer, and sometimes you have to subtract to get the answer. So it's not really adding, it's more combining. Okay? On page 14 of your textbook, which you can access through My Math Lab, you have the whole textbook on an e-version. On page 14, it gives you the rules for adding integers. It says if they have the same sign, again, this is on page 14, okay? If they have the same sign, you add the two numbers together and keep the sign. For instance, 2 plus 4, they're both positive. Your answer is 6, and it's positive. Negative 2 plus negative 4, you'd add the 2 and 4 together to get 6, but instead of a positive 6, it's a negative 6. You add negative 8 plus negative 10. 8 and 10 make 18, and it's negative. Okay? Same sign, not so bad. Different signs. Now we're not going to add, we're going to subtract. We're going to subtract smaller, and it's the absolute value of the number. Smaller number from the absolute value of larger. I guess maybe I can make this an S and make that an L, small, larger, and keep the sign of the larger. So for instance, if I had negative 3 plus 5, different signs. 3 from 5 is 2, and the larger number had a positive sign, so my answer is positive. If I had 3 plus negative 5, now 3 from 5 is 2, but the larger number is negative, so my answer is negative 2. Okay? Let's do negative 17 plus 11. Let's do 4 plus negative 1. Let's do negative 9 plus 17. Okay, these are all different signs. Subtract 11 from 17, you get 6, and it's negative because 17 is the larger number and it has a negative sign. Subtract 1 from 4, you get 3, and it's positive because the larger number is positive. Subtract 9 from 17, and you get 8, and it's positive because 17 is the larger number. Okay? All right. Now, what if I had, now we're going to go into subtraction. Subtraction is just adding the opposite. Okay, so if I had 6 minus 4, that's the same as saying 6, now watch what I do to this, plus a negative 4. I added the opposite. Well, you subtract 4 from 6 and keep the sign of the larger number, so it's positive 2. Okay? But what if I had 6 minus 8? That's the same as saying 6 plus a negative 8. Subtract the smaller from the larger and keep the sign of the larger. I'm not going to rewrite this all the time like this. I need you to start realizing that this means I'm combining a positive 6 and a negative 8. Different signs, subtract, keep the sign of the larger. Okay? If I had negative 12 minus 4, sorry, that's a 2. Negative 12 minus 4. That means I'm combining a negative and a negative. When they both negatives, same signs, you add them together and keep the sign of what they are. Okay? What if I had negative 10 minus negative 7? Now here's where we have two negatives. That is where you need to, where's my, changing my colors? Oh, there it is. This is where you need to add the opposite because two negatives make a positive. So now I have a negative 10 and a positive 7. So I subtract and keep the sign of the larger. Okay? Let's do one a little bit challenging. It's a bigger one. What if I had 15 minus negative 3 minus 5 minus 12? All right. First of all, I do need to take care of two negatives side by side. Okay, that I do need to take care of. All right. Now, I have a 15 and a 3. 18. I have an 18 and a negative 5. Subtract, keep the sign of the larger. And I have positive 13 and a negative 12. Subtract, keep the sign of the larger. Not so bad, right? All right. Let's try one more. Let's try negative 9 minus, in brackets, negative 8 minus, in parentheses, negative 4, close bracket, plus 6. All right. First of all, we always work from the inside out. And this inside has 2, so I got to take care of that. Okay. So I have negative 9 minus. Now, let's do what's inside. Negative 8 and positive 4. Signs are different, so I subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. Okay, so now, do you see that I have two negatives here, so I have to add the opposite. Now I have negative 9 and positive 4. Signs are different. Subtract and keep the sign of the larger. Signs are different. Subtract and keep the sign of the larger. Okay? All right. Now, in multiplication and division, very simple. If the signs are the same, the answer's positive. If the signs are different, the answer's negative. So, for instance, 3 times 4, you know, is 12. Negative 3 times negative 4, the signs are the same, it's positive 12. Negative 3 times positive 4, the signs are different, so it's negative 12. And 3 times negative 4, signs are different, it's negative 12. Okay? Same with division. If I had 10 divided by 5, I get 2. If I had negative 10 divided by negative 5, two negatives make a positive. If I had negative 10 divided by positive 5, signs are different, my answer is negative. Or if I had 10 divided by negative 5 that way, signs are different, the answer is negative. Okay? Basic rule. Okay? All right. Oh, the last thing in this section is they talk about what is the distance between two numbers. Now we're talking about on a number line. Okay? The formula to find this is the absolute value, and you take the two numbers and you subtract them. So if I wanted to know what is the distance between negative 8 and positive 12 on a number line, okay, the distance between would be -8 and 12. And what do? You subtract. All right, so let's do what's inside first. -8 and -12, the signs are the same, so we add them and they stay negative. But what is the absolute value of -20? +20. So the distance between these two numbers is 20. All right. What if I wanted to know, let's try another one. The distance between -10 and -35. All right. -10 and -35, and what do? We subtract. All right, well, looking at the fact that I have two negatives, remember when you have two negatives, you have to do this, okay? So now do what's inside. -10 and +35. I'm going to subtract and keep the sign that's the larger. And then what's the absolute value of 25? 25. Okay? All right, that's 1.2. All right, we are done.